Succession's editors were nominated for a range of different awards, and in 2023, 3 Succession editors were nominated for Emmys. So let's take a look at what it takes to edit an award-winning show. The balcony scene.
At this party here, there are maybe 40 of the most important people in America.
One of my favourite scenes in the show is Tom and Shiv's argument on the balcony. We start with a lot of J-cuts. Each character begins to talk before we see them.
No, it was implied, likely, as a little part of a tactical kind of joke.
Will you explain to me the joke? Because I don't get the fucking joke. I don't get the joke.
It was something that he said that isn't true that we needed to say.
But you stood by his side and he said it and you were like, okay, well, that sounds good to me.
We then shift to a shot that changes in focus from Shiv to Tom, breaking the pattern of the conversation. We then move to a close-up as their argument begins to heat up.
You are a tough fucking bitch who will always survive because you do what you need. You will do whatever you need.
Yeah? Really? You sure you're not projecting? Because that is actually you.
Ken Eluto, the editor of this episode, does a brilliant job in showing which comments hit Tom and Shiv by allowing us to linger on their reactions for a longer period of time.
And I think you are maybe not a good person to have children.
I don't even care about you. I don't care.
Don't cut to a wide. Staying with the balcony scene, Ken explains in a Variety YouTube video how he initially cut away to a shot looking from the inside out.
There was some stuff from indoors looking out at them on the patio, and there were some shots of them, people looking in, watching them talk. And initially I'd done a pass where I used a piece of that where Tom's talking about, you were going to send me to prison, then you gave me that crappy wine, because he was really screaming at that point. And it was kind of like in the middle of the scene. So I cut inside, I kind of muted the sound a little bit, but you could see people listening and watching them.
You know, we definitely
tried a more like extreme cut, and it felt like it let the tension go a little bit. It was almost funny, which was a tone you didn't want to introduce there.
But holding on them allows for a more emotional scene. We feel very much stuck in the middle of 2 characters. If we'd been pulled out, then it would have taken away from the intensity of the argument. Interestingly, Jane Rizzo spoke in a podcast about how when cutting the election episode and the scene where Tom and Greg are snorting cocaine, she initially cut to a wide. Here is her talking about that now.
Like, I had this one scene, and it's in the election episode this season, where Tom and Greg are snorting cocaine behind the board, and then I used to cut to the outside where there was like a wide shot of the board and they're looking out. It's a funny shot, but that was one of the rare picture notes where he was just like, yeah, if we cut to the wide shot, it's too like slapsticky. Let's not cut to the wide shot.
The editors have to make sure that the scenes don't come across as overly comedic or distract from the emotion of the scene. Dinner table scenes. Dinner table scenes are key throughout the show. Here I will analyse the scene in Season 2, Episode 5, edited by Bill Henry. According to this graph by StephenFollows.com, a drama has an average shot length of 15 seconds. But from here...
The internal differences, have they been smoothed over?
Oh, very much so.
...to here, we cut every 2.5 seconds. This is closer to the amount of cuts for an action sequence, and not a conversation. The reason it's cut like this is that it adds to the chaotic and messiness of the scene. Despite the lack of dialogue from Shiv, in fact she doesn't begin to speak until a minute into the scene. The shots that Bill Henry has chosen to use highlight her as an integral part of the scene. They also indicate that she may say something at any moment, and so we are watching and bracing ourselves.
Dad, just tell him it's going to be me.
A shot that stands out for me in this sequence is the slow pull-in on Shiv. The reason for this is the camera is steady for the first time. It takes away from any distractions, and instead we are pulled into the thoughts of Shiv as she stares at her father, waiting for him to announce her, and in disbelief when he doesn't. Connor's wedding. Here is a clip of director Mark Mylod explaining some of the editing decisions.
When we got into post-production, into the edit, became a real debate as to how much we should cut between the airplane and how much we should just stay on the siblings. The initial idea was maybe we'll just stay on the boat pretty much all the time. But then when we did shoot, Matthew was so damn compelling that really murkied up the argument at that point, and we ended up cutting more to Matthew than we initially intended just because it was just so good.
They're doing chest compressions.
Frank thinks you should speak to your dad.
If we look at Walter Murch's rule of 6 when editing, emotion takes importance over everything else, and so even though it may have made the scene more dramatic to keep us trapped with the siblings, unable to know what was going on the plane, Matthew Macfadyen's performance outweighs that. And I'm so glad that we do see the occasional shot of Tom on the plane, as for me it adds so much more depth to the scene. Here is another interesting insight.
I like the camera operators to have to react to what's happening, not to anticipate it. We follow that idea through into the edit, where we'll often edit 5 frames late, just after, but not to anticipate unless there's a very good reason for doing so. Cumulatively, I think just gives that, helps with the tension and that sense of barely keeping up with the action.
When to use music.
Had a pretty good sense of where the music should be. I just felt it was such a luxury to have the kind of like scope of what the score was going to be.
Music is such a key part of Succession, and Nicholas Brittle composes the perfect scores for the scenes. But it's the editor's job to choose exactly when they should start. Here are a few examples of when the music comes in and elevates the moment, whether that's making the scene more emotional, dramatic, or intense. You okay?
But I think this is the day his reign ends.
I wonder if the sad I'd be without you would be less than the sad I get from being with you.
You know what? Good luck, yeah? Good luck, motherfucker. Because we have the numbers, yeah? Good fucking luck.
Succession is my current favourite TV show. Everything comes together perfectly: the camera work, the acting, the script, and of course, the editing.